Unemployment is a national disaster. That's according to the governing ANC. It's vowed to reduce unemployment from 27% to 14% in the next 5 years. It comes after the party's three-day National Executive Committee Lekgotla, part of preparing for the government's program as the sixth democratic administration assumes office.
Unemployed people are estimated to be 10 million in the country, bringing unemployment figures to more than 27%. Many have described this as a ticking time bomb. Perhaps the reason why the governing party has decided to declare this as a national disaster.
Lekgotla agreed that unemployment is now going to be a national emergency. We are declaring unemployment a national disaster. And this is where we are going to want our deployees, ministers, MECs, premiers, councillors, those in SOEs, we want them to focus on implementation and stop planning for life and stop talking and stop theorizing.
And the party has also embarked on an ambitious program of drastically reducing poverty levels.
Lekgotla agreed to reduce unemployment from 27% to 14% in the next 5 years. And whilst focusing on skilling and reskilling program to 3.5 million young South Africans, will be focusing on them. And the ANC plans to achieve massive job creation on the back of the industrial strategy, job summit initiatives, Operation Pakisa, private-public growth initiatives. Those are the areas we are going to try and deal with this challenge of unemployment.
It says it will undertake a review of some of the laws which may inhibit speedy service delivery. Mzwanele Mbeje, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, as part of that, the ANC's National Executive Committee Lekgotla, it's not just the NEC, there are other parts of the ANC there as well. They've decided that the Reserve Bank's mandate should be expanded to focus on employment and growing the economy. This seems to mark a change from the central bank's current mandate, which is to target inflation using interest rates to ensure price stability. In other words, to ensure the price of bread doesn't double. Speaking after its Lekgotla, the ANC Secretary-General also said that ministers deployed to government should work to lower unemployment from 27% to 14% over the next 5 years. For more on this ANC-NEC Lekgotla decisions, the ANC's national spokesperson Pule Mabe is with me now. Pule, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in.
Evening and evening to your viewers.
All right, let's start with the Reserve Bank mandate. I imagine every business person watching you wants to know this, anyone with an interest in our economy. What do you actually want to change in the mandate?
Well, I wouldn't want to get deeper now on issues that relate to the central bank because those are discussions that are ongoing in the organization as part of exploring the different options. Of course, you'll appreciate that it is in our interest that the central bank is stable. It continues to discharge its own mandate unhindered and makes a positive contribution on the kind of growth that we want to see in the country. And I think it is well within this spirit that all of these engagements are taking place.
Okay, so inflation targeting is still part of the mandate. You're not abandoning that.
No. That's why I'm saying at this stage we didn't want to really go into those details. Safe to say that we are comforted with the level of stability that the central bank is working towards, and that they should be supported, working together with the Minister of Finance to continue doing their work and fulfilling their mandate.
Okay, I mean, the bank's governor, Lesetja Kganyago, we see him every 2 months. He gives a big speech. He tells us whether interest rates are going up and down. After every monetary policy committee meeting, he's basically said the same thing, that you can't use monetary policy to grow the economy. You can't use interest rates to grow the economy. What you really need is proper deep structural reforms. Your statement seems to be talking to some deep reforms coming.
Well, hence I'm saying that at the right time, when we had clearly formulated a view on how all of these things are going to be approached, we'll be able to communicate and convey our message. We are quite confident now and happy that with the work that the central bank is doing to try and make sure that we achieve the levels of stability required, but we also boost investor confidence as well.
Okay, let's talk about then what you want to do to cut unemployment. In other words, create jobs. I mean, the problems facing the country, youth unemployment is probably the highest, the biggest, I mean. So what are we going to do? I mean, what is government, what is the governing party going to ask government to do to bring down the unemployment rate to just 14%?
Well, the biggest focus of this lekotla was, of course, on the question of jobs. This lekotla emerged having declared unemployment, and not just for youth, unemployment a national disaster, and sought to begin outlining areas of intervention, mining and beneficiation amongst others, ICT, the fourth industrial revolution, tourism, the services industry, but also make sure that you also use government supply chain through a decentralized kind of a supply chain to make sure that locals, through the local economic development policy, could begin playing a meaningful role in their own economies. You'll remember that in the past, well, we took a view sometimes back to establish the chief procurement office, which would mean that most of those contracts would have to be undertaken through a transversal means. Sometimes that could work to the disadvantage of local economies. So you are saying, as part of making sure that you have got greater participation of locals in the economy, you could be able to do it through some of these policy interventions. But we didn't only say that. We also said that there must be set-asides for youth, for women, for the unemployed. So it means that when you look at what you do with policy reforms, whether it's your PFMA and MFMA, which are quite critical to drive those issues at the public sector level, you make sure that there is this focused participation. We even said that the abandoned buildings, abandoned government buildings, should also be utilized to establish your youth centers, your industrial hubs, as part of making sure that we boost the participation of young people and the unemployed and women in the economy. So we have taken a broad view. I mean, for instance, we looked at what were the things that were flagged out as being a worry for South Africans when we went into elections. We did research, and one of the things that were tops was the question of jobs. There is in no way that we could be able to grow this country without providing jobs for people, without even creating some levels of certainty that the economy is moving forward.
Okay, so I mean, the various things have been tried. Beneficiation, there's been talk about that for at least a decade in ANC circles. Are you able to say at this stage what's going to be tried that's new, what's going to be different, or do we still need to wait for all of this to go through the government process?
Well, there's quite a lot that is going to be done. Well, you've got to make sure, for instance, you had the Pakisa ocean economy. You have biodiversity, which is also very important in the tourism space. The digital economy, which is largely driven by ICT, your DTT, mining and beneficiation, where you actually want locals to play a meaningful role. So you don't necessarily have to bring in a lot of new things, but we're also saying that there must also be enterprises that are developed through innovations that could be able to introduce the speed through which things are done. I mean, we have got a number of SOEs where these young people and the unemployed in their own communities could be able to play a meaningful role. But remember, when we developed all of these priorities, we first looked at the 25-year review, where we were in 1994 when we first came into power, where we are now, and what if we say we want to achieve that 14% growth, what are the things that we need to be doing? So each and everything that we are suggesting, it's actually a product of scientific research. We had the Statistician General, the SG, giving the state of the nations in numbers. And it was out of the brief that he was given to the Lekgotla, which our commissions that were undertaken at least had a broader understanding on the things that needed to be attended to.
Okay, I mean, if we look at South Africa now, right?
Yes,
I mean, if we look particularly at young people, I mean, we could use different words, but they've certainly been, I think, let down by our education system. We've got people aged 18 to 35. We find it very difficult to find any job at all. That means that in a way, we almost need a sort of another education system for them, or we need jobs that they're able to actually do and get gainful employment and the dignity that comes with that. I mean, you know, if you walk through an area, people will literally stop and ask you for a job if you're dressed in a particular way. So is there anything that is being thought to do about them?
Correct. I mean, one of the things that we are doing is to, you know, back in the days we used to have something called Hambach. Today we call them TVET colleges. We've also said that our TVET colleges must become the anchors of providing the technical skills that are required by the economy. So that as you train and upskill young people, you also give them the skills that the economy needs. And we singled out two programs. The SEPA 1 million in Gauteng, to make sure that it's a program that is emboldened and becomes a way of life in the provincial government of Gauteng, but that all other provincial governments in other provinces could be able to replicate this initiative. We also spoke about the National Youth Service Program. We said the National Youth Service Program should be streamlined across public sector institutions so that we bring in many other young people. They could be playing a role, whether it's in maintenance, in each and every community where you go, you find government buildings. Who's maintaining those buildings? You know. So I'm just citing this as a few examples, but I can tell you that this was not just speak. I mean, the very first day of the Lekgotla, we went up until 8 o'clock in the evening. The level of participation from our alliance partners, from director generals who were there, from our own, the energy brought by the new ministers and deputy ministers, our own members of the NEC. We also went further. We had even invited MECs of finances in all the 8 provinces where we are government, so that the sort of things that we discuss and make as priorities, they too would know that when they develop their medium-term strategic framework, those things are also expressed. Remember, we said there's the manifesto of the ANC, which we took out to the country when we were going for elections. There is the IDP in municipalities. There is our own NDP document. There is the medium-term strategic framework that government is also using as an instrument of planning. We said we should be looking at all of these things holistically and make sure that they all contribute towards one plan that moves the country forward.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the economy, and there'll be more conversations coming through. I do want to ask you about one or two day-to-day political issues, which is after the cabinet announcement by President Ramaphosa last week. Within less than half an hour or so, some of the senior ANC leaders were discussing this on Twitter. Mzondile Messina, the mayor of Ekurhuleni, member of the NEC, is one of them. He said, he strongly criticized the appointment of Pravin Gordhan. I don't think he was the only one. Was there a discussion about this in the NEC where people called to order for what's been happening on Twitter? It looks like you're having an NEC meeting on Twitter sometimes.
Well, no, Stephen. Let me just first start by correcting. Mzondile is not in the NEC, he's the regional chairperson of Ekurhuleni. There were reflections on that, and there was an agreement that comrades should be engaged, not just Mzondile, Comrade Mzondile. Comrades should be engaged to desist from such conduct that could work to undermine the unity of the African National Congress.
Tony, again, he's been talking about Pravin Gordhan all week.
Well, we have already spoken about that, and our comrades have heeded the call. I mean, our own president was on record as saying, Marumo Fasi. You know, let's stop with this mudslinging. Let's stop with this public spat. We need one ANC that could be able to drive one common agenda that consolidates the unity and renewal program. But it's not just that. There's quite a number of things that are being done to make sure that our comrades could at least speak. There could be a sense of many voices, one message. And we said our own communications protocols in the African National Congress ought to be adhered to. What was encouraging is that the region that Comrade Mzondile leads in Ekurhuleni, after there were these engagements, had even issued a statement as a region, signed by their regional secretary, working together with the chair, welcoming the appointment of a cabinet, which now suggests that cadres of the ANC, when engaged about issues that they could be involved in, which might erode the unity of the movement, they heed the call, listen, and carry themselves as disciplined members of the African National Congress.
Pule, just please don't stop the cooking recipes on Twitter, will you? From your members. Pule Mabe is the national spokesperson of the African National Congress. Well, staying with matters political, as the ANC commemorates Youth Month, members of the Revive ANC Youth League movement took